I am limping and I have my big winter boots on because it's the only thing which will hold my frickin' toe in place. But I'll tell you about that in a minute. I was listening to Jane and I was like, oh my God, we're from the same mother. She's like, I was like, this disruptor and how awesome is she? And she's so freaking cool. And then she got to the bit about it not being personal and I was like, ugh. So I've got this whole debate going on in my head now because the collective's pretty personal to me. But I get what you're saying and I really get it. And I do also have to separate that from myself sometimes. So I'm just going to rant. It was so great to hear from the other three women and I feel like I'm like, it was all so good. I'm like, you stole that. It was all good. No, it was awesome to hear. So who knows about the collective? Okay, that's good. Thank you. So, I'll talk a little bit about that. Then I might talk a little bit about my time on Necker, if anyone wants to know about what Richard's like, and it was pretty extraordinary. So I did launch the collective on the 4th of March last year with absolutely no prior knowledge about magazines at all. And so why wouldn't you in an industry that's completely dying on its ass? Logical. And none of my staff, of whom I had 3 at the time, knew anything about magazines either. But what I did know was that I was sick to death of all the salacious gossip and the, excuse me, sorry, Heidi's mum, I'll say BS, I won't say bullshit, that was happening in the media and all the negativity and all the crap that was out there. And like many of you, I'd been fortunate enough to surround myself with extraordinary women and men and networks, and I felt like I was living in a bit of a bubble, and so I felt that I wanted to take something. I'd been working, with books, as Hyde said. We've done over 400 books now, which was a whole other story and a very big accident how I fell into that. And what was your name over there? You know who I'm talking. Rachel just brought, can you hold that up? I wrote, this is my first book, Happiness Is, that I accidentally wrote like 10 years ago, and Rachel brought that along today, which is so divine. I wrote that, I will go back a little bit, I wrote that 10 years ago when I had no idea about publishing, and that was sort of my first disruptive play. In Australia, books primarily go through bookstores, and I wrote a book because I was really unhappy, so I wrote a book about Happiness Is, as you would, and went around Australia and just interviewed people about what made them happy. And what I did with that book was I decided that corporates bought so many inanimate objects like coffee mugs and squeegee balls and stuff, and I thought, why can't they buy a book as a premium or incentive or a gift or a reward? And that went on to sell 36,000 copies just by doing bulk pre-sales to corporates. So I've been doing that for quite a while, so I'm working with a number of individuals. But with the collective, I decided, well, why can't I do that kind of model and bring together, a whole lot of extraordinary people? And so we just, that one there is our 16th issue, and we're now in 35 countries, which is pretty cool, and it's much, much bigger than the print magazine. And so, I think sometimes when people say to you, are you mad? Are you drunk or on drugs, of which I am neither? It's not about the print magazine. It's never been about the print magazine. It's about building and fostering an extraordinary community like you guys who are, like-minded game changers who are wanting to give back and do good in the world and, create something that they're really passionate about. And so the magazine is really just the cornerstone for that. It's been an interesting journey because, I don't know, some of you may have read my book and been following, and I say I'm an entrepreneur for entrepreneurs, so I'm nothing special, and I just kind of put it all out there, and nothing's off limits in terms of, what I'll say or what, you can ask me anything, literally. But it's expensive, so each print issue alone, and now I have 18 different revenue streams and essentially business units coming off the back of the collective, and the 35 countries, etc., and multiple distribution channels. In Australia we're in 3,506 news agencies, we're in every Virgin, Qantas, Emirates lounge, we're in Coles, we're in Woolworths. It goes on, and that's one country. In the US, we're in every single Barnes & Noble store. I think there's 780. We're in all LAX, JFK. Like, it's a big, big logistical, unwieldy thing right now. And it is me who owns it 100%, who had no background, no money, no staff. So my message really is that you don't need any of that. You really don't. You need a bloody big dream, and you need to really back yourself and have as much passion and tenacity and, all the stuff that these amazing women have talked about. And then you just need to go for it. And in actual fact, in Australia alone, there are over 5,500 print magazines. The Collective, I'm very proud to say, is now sitting consistently in the top 10 magazines. But that has been a very purposeful play. I made it look like a women's magazine because I knew that, Vogue and Marie Claire and Harper's sold a lot of magazines. I needed to sit next to them in news agencies, which nearly killed me because I kind of hate all that stuff, to be honest. Like, I wanted it to be real entrepreneurs on the cover, but I know that doesn't sell. So I'd put Ryan Gosling on 2 issues ago. It sold us little socks off. And I kind of go, I've had this internal battle around, I don't want to put bloody celebrities on the cover. But the reality is, if that makes people pick it up thinking they're buying a fashion mag and then they realise actually it's quite intelligent, full of extraordinary entrepreneurs like you, well, then I've done my job, The packaging is kind of irrelevant. So I've purposely made it look like a design and a fashion magazine. So anyway, that's a bit about the story. Incredible things have happened, when you really believe in yourself and invest in yourself. And I'll tell a couple of quick stories. How am I going for time? Am I right? So little things like last year in October, there was the Global Magazine Congress, and I thought, well, maybe I should go along and see if I know what I'm doing. Turns out I did, which was quite handy. But the first night, when you invest in yourself, and I do this a lot now, like I'll spend money to go overseas, and it's a lot of money. And on the first night, I met Martha Stewart's vice president. Anyway, she said to me, I was telling you about the Collective. She said, well, if you're coming to New York, you should come to the Martha Stewart offices and have a look. And I said, well, I'm going to be there in 3 days, so that's great. And on the next day, I met this guy, Philippe, who's the global syndication manager for the New York Times, which was amazing. Having been publishing books for so long, everyone always says to me, I want to be on the New York Times bestseller list. But what they do is, I think it's like this unattainable thing that's on the moon. And I don't know why we do that to ourselves. So some of the things I've learned in the last year is, I said to Philippe, well, I'm going to go to New York in 3 days. And he said, I can get you into the page 1 editorial meeting. Which is phenomenal. It's 18 divisional editors, so every editor of the New York Times gets together in a big boardroom and they discuss what's going to be on the front page of the New York Times the next day. And I've now been invited to do that twice. And so the Martha Stewart thing and the New York Times thing, extraordinary, wow, pinch myself moments, But much, 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 much more than that, the real takeout for me on both of those occasions was they're just like us. And that has been the biggest thing in this journey. The Collective's getting pretty big now, and I do have the amazing opportunity to meet lots of incredible people, but the closer I get to them all, I go, they're just kind of daggy. They just go home and put their Ugg boots on with their dog like me. They do. They really do. And so that has made me realise that, that's lifted me up, aside from our community who every day, and thank you for those of you who do it, because, that really keeps me going. People going, oh my God, I read The Collective and it gave me the courage to step up to the next level of business, or I started my business. It's just so many beautiful stories. So that is amazing. And then also these opportunities with these people who have a lot of, the spin and the hype and the PR machine around them and things, and then I go, they're just like us. I was going to talk about the financing stuff, but maybe we can talk about that in the questions, because it's kind of long, about how I've financed it, because it's kind of a big one about, I don't believe that money is the only currency, and so we've worked a lot with like-minded, non-competing partners, and so feel free to ask me that when I'm up there. But I'll just finish in the essence of time talking about my experience on Necker. So I got invited about 4 months ago to this email popped into my inbox saying, would you like to come to Richard Branson's private island Necker? And I said, yes, I would. Funnily enough. Thank you very much. That was a no-brainer. And so I arrived there about a week ago. I've just got back on Saturday. And The single most phenomenal experience of my entire life. He had just, the whole Galactica thing had just happened, and so it was questionable, will he actually turn up? And we arrived. It took me 3 flights to get to the Tortola, which is in the British Virgin Islands, and then you kind of get in this white James Bond boat and go for like 40 minutes through all the other islands. It's very exciting. And we got there about 5 o'clock, and then Richard turned up the next morning at 10, and as he had said, and we met him in his living room, which is kind of next to his house, which is what he built for the elders, so Nelson Mandela and Jimmy Carter and all those guys. And so that's where we sat with him. And he walked in his board shorts and his bare feet, and he sat down and put his feet up on the coffee table and said hi. And he's the most extraordinary, humble, down-to-earth. I mean, this is his home. He lives on Necker 6 months of the year and then travel. Him and his wife Joan travel the rest of the year pretty much, speaking and doing everything he does. And he just had us in his home, and we had all the meals with him, and he's just like a really normal, but, abnormal because he's extraordinary kind of a guy, but very simple, and so I can answer more stuff about that. The funny thing was I did break my toe on Necker and I told Richard this, and he thought it was hysterical, and I was telling the girls this morning, and I said, even though it's really painful, actually sometimes these things are the best things. He will never forget me because I said to him, Richard, if you forget about the collective, which he won't because he's just agreed to put it in every room. I think there's 15 rooms. It takes 30 people at a time. So the collective will be in every room, every issue, which is very exciting because Yeah, thank you. And my book is now, Daring and Disruptive, is actually sitting in his bookshelf next to Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom. So anyway, but the toe. So I was sitting on the toilet. It's where a good stories start, right? And I had my shorts down around, sorry for the men, but I had my shorts down around my ankles, and suddenly this big snake jumped up, like a tree snake, like long. I've got a photo of it. Was really big, and it jumped up, and I got the biggest fright, and it got the biggest fright, and so I tried to get off the toilet and run, and of course when your shorts around your ankles you can't run, so I fell over and hit my head and had a massive bump, and then I broke my toe, and anyway, and Richard thinks it's hysterical. Are we filming? Yeah, I better not say what he's. I will, or I better not. I will say it because he said it. He said it in front of 28 other people. He goes, it was the weirdest thing. He goes, I was the snake, And I was like, that is really weird. I don't know where he was going with that. Anyway, it was a truly amazing experience, and I'm planning on going back within the next 6 months because, that kind of opportunity just doesn't happen all the time, and amazing place. Anyway, I will shut up, but when we're up there, feel free to ask anything. Nothing is off limits at all about snakes, financials, whatever. Thank you.